Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round one of the Formula Alpha Championship for 2025. It is great to be back on the microphone. This time, though, it is for our single-seaters. I'll try that again. Our first blunder of the evening. We were, of course, here last week with the Juliettas, the fabulous touring cars here at the Hungaroring. Now it's time to see what our competitors in the single-seaters can do. Just over 10 minutes to go in qualifying in this session. So far, Alan Matthews leads with a few tenths ahead of Paul Millman. So Paul Millman doing very well in this session with Inglis, and Andrew Brammer also joining in. They are yet to set their fast lap, so let's see if we can stay on board with Inglis as he heads around for his first quick lap of the session. But yeah, it's great to be back. This circuit, obviously the Hungaroring, perhaps a bit more traditional for the likes of car that we're in this evening. Not often you see a touring car at the Hungaroring. We all best know it for its use in the Formula 1 category, as well as, of course, of the Junior Series as well. But now it's time to see what our Formula Alphas can do. Of course, last week we were treated to a fantastic race one, lap one battle, in fact plenty of lap one battles throughout, really, but a race one lap one battle between David Chelly and Matt Daly. We're hoping to have a similar thing so far this evening. Slightly lower driver numbers for this evening. We've got 4 competitors out on track for the time being, but let's see what they can do. Of course, it should promote some really close racing because these cars aren't that wide, and it's a relatively large circuit, so plenty, well, like Formula 4 standards, so there's plenty of room for some overtaking to be done, I think. Alan Matthews still fastest out in this session at the moment. His Delta's looking strong. Going to stay on board though with Will Inglis. We haven't had a truly representative sector from him. The timing system just hasn't quite caught up with him yet, but we should be seeing what he can post as he comes toward the end of the lap. Now, the left-handers through turn 12, 13. Sorry, right-hander through 12, 13 is the left, and then it's back through the right, up the hill through turn 14. And there we have the return of the medical centre. The fabulous camera angle that we were treated to so many times last week, we get treated to again, and it's a shame that we missed what was the end of a brilliant lap there for Will Inglis at 1:45.65, 300ths of a second ahead of Alan Matthews. That is still very close though, especially with 10 minutes to go in this session. We're going to have a fight on our hands, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready towards our first race of the season. An out-and-out pole battle between Alan Matthews and Will Inglis is what we like to see. Andrew Brammer, though, not to be outdone, is certainly setting a very nice lap at the moment. He's coming towards the end of his lap now, crosses the line there to go 1:46.2, so ever so slightly behind Paul Millman, but they were nice personal bests throughout for all 4 sectors. A unique layout for this track mod here in Assetto Corsa. So actually a very close field at the top end here, the entire field being separated by 0.6 of a second for the 4 drivers we've got posting a lap so far. Jack Hodson joining in, so he'll be posting a lap there or thereabouts, so should be seeing, again, a slightly extended field as we head through this qualifying session, but some close driving as well. And there we have Matt Daly as well. We know he'll be competitive, so things really starting to heat up now as we head into the final 10 minutes of this session. There we see one of my favourite liveries actually throughout the Formula Alpha running. It's been used plenty of times in the past on various cars now, but that Earth Dreams inspired livery is what I'm going to call it. Is a brilliant skin for the car there, but unfortunately it isn't bringing Andrew Brammer much fortune. That was heading through turn 9 there, and the back end just stepping out on the car. He's running on the soft tyre. Everyone's running on the soft tyre, of course. In fact, no, we've got Matt Daly on the mediums at the moment, so we'll see if he changes those. But yeah, Andrew Brammer there, the back end just getting away from him. That could be a variety of factors. It could be he's just pushing the car too much, the tyre's still a bit cold on the rear end, or maybe setup. He might be running a little bit of a low downforce setup on the back end, which means it could be susceptible to misbehaving if he tries to put a bit too much load through it. Either way, he has recovered now and should be able to get back up to speed, ready for another fast lap. So we'll see what he can do as he heads around now the final corner once more. Nice improvement though at the top end. Meanwhile, for Will Inglis, goes 1:44.9, finds himself now ahead of Alan Matthews by 7/10 of a second, nearly 8 in fact. Not to be outdone though, Alan Matthews currently on for a bit of a sharp lap at the moment, so we might stay on board with him. Although, to be honest, I don't think we will, because not to be outdone, Will Inglis, purple sector through that first sector. And there is, in fact, Alan Matthews just in front of him. So no, in fact, it's musical chairs, but with the camera, we are going to go and jump back on board with Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews heading through turn 11 with Will Inglis very close in tow here. This could be an exciting one as we come towards the end of this session now. Diving onto the brakes for turn 12, a crucial braking zone. We saw a great battle between Sebastian Vettel and Esteban Ocon here a few seasons ago in the Formula 1 racing. Now it's time to see what our drivers can do as we head up through turn 13, all the way back up, all that elevation that you drop, running down towards turn 4, running down through sector 2. You build it all back up, and the back end steps out on Alan Matthews' car there, and so does for Will Inglis as well. A sympathy spin. All of a sudden, we're seeing quite a few drivers now starting to lose the back end of the cars. This could also be perhaps drivers pushing those soft tyres to go a lap or two further into the stint, and the tyres just not wanting to give that grip. This could be very telling for the racing coming up, folks. Who knows what we're going to expect, as we've got obviously more fuel on board the cars. That might work the tyres a bit harder, and of course they've got to go longer into the race. The tyres will have less grip at the end of the session. In terms of track conditions, or conditions out in the real world at the moment, as you can just about see, or should be able to see there, the track is pretty optimum. In the top right hand corner of your screen, new for this season are some visuals regarding the track conditions. I'll endeavour to try and make these bigger if possible. I know obviously it might be a little bit tricky to read on certain screens, but yep, 98% optimum conditions. They may increase ever so slightly, but no, it seems to be where Assetto is pretty happy overall as Will Inglis dives into the pits. Track temperature 36 degrees tarmac with an ambient of 26, so really ideal conditions, not echoing the real life stuff. As you can see, as I'm sure you all agree, I really wish it was like that outside at the moment, but it very much isn't, with 13 km/h winds, so winds that will be barely noticeable in the cockpit of the car. So at the moment it is Will Inglis who still leads this session ahead of Alan Matthews, both drivers having an issue on the previous lap. Let's go on board though with Matt Daly, who is setting personal best sectors, his first true lap of the session. He comes across the line in just a moment and will post a 4-minute lap because that has been considered an out lap. Sector 1 there, yeah, looks like he was sat in the pits. So it was a flying out lap there to get the tyres up into temperature. Let's stay on board with Matt. Then he dives into that first corner. A bit of a tricky braking zone here because you've got the off camber and the downhill. It can unload the tyres quite easily and cause lock-up, so drivers have to be careful of that. Likewise for the second corner coming up next. Navigated that, negotiated that well though. No major lock-ups. We were seeing plenty of lock-ups from all axles, actually, from both axles in the touring cars, but have seen less of that so far in the single-seaters. Running up next through turn 4 and turn 5, an elevation rise now as Matt Daly goes purple through that first sector. Jack Hodson also improving as well, but it is Matt Daly who's going to be setting the headline times, I suspect, on his first true flying lap. The chicane coming up, turn 6, turn 7, one of the slowest parts of the circuit before you head through the tight, twisty section, turn 8, turn 9, turn 10. Really the technical part of the lap, although overall a very technical circuit. Quite compact, quite tight, especially in the likes of a Formula 1 car. A bit of a unique track these days. Well, other tracks will have tight, twisty, 90-degree left, right, that sort of thing, but they're all street Tilcadrome, so we don't really count them. Anyway, as we head through turn 12, up through turn 13, in a moment the elevation rises once again as we see Jack Hodson going second fastest there with a 1:45.477, sector 3 purple. He really threw that out of the bag, did Jack Hodson, and has rewarded nicely there. The back end kicking out on Matt Daly. That is going to compromise what has been another absolutely brilliant lap. Otherwise, he jumps back onto the throttle to come across the line. What will it be for Matt Daly? It's 4th in the end. He'll be kicking himself, I am sure. Purple best through sector 1, matching purple through sector 2 and sector 3 pretty much, but it all went wrong through sector 4 there. Lost a second in that one corner, and that has cost him big time there. That would have seen him quite comfortably on pole as it stands for this session. This session is really hotting up, folks, because now we've got Will Inglis, who's heading out back on track to set some more laps. It's actually on the medium tyres here, so we are seeing some use of the medium in this session. So as I suspected there, that soft is just not giving the grip that drivers want towards the end of the lap. We saw that with Alan Matthews, with Will Inglis. We saw that with Andrew Brammer earlier. We saw that with Matt Daly right at the end of his attempt there. So turn 14 seems to be a bit of a bugbear for these drivers if they're running on that soft compound. Let's see what they can do though as we head into that final stint. Do the drivers try and brave the softs, or do they go safe and go on the mediums? That is going to be the big question now, and it could be a huge determining factor, in fact, in the starting order for race 1. Will Inglis will be the next driver to come across the line. We'll stay on board with him. 144.9 to try and beat so far. No sectors have been an improvement, as you can see. Well, the delta system's a little bit off on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen there, so apologies for that. But yes, no improvements so far for Will Inglis as he heads up through the final corner. Here's where it all went wrong. He goes a little bit wrong again on the brakes. Unless he was trying to box off the corner ever so slightly, it just looked like he went too deep into the corner entry, and that has cost him. He comes across the line there. It was a fast sector 4, I must admit, so I was mistaken there. But unfortunately, not an improvement. Now, I say unfortunately, he is currently on provisional pole, but that pole very much is provisional. It's only 0.2 of a second ahead of Alan Matthews. That could easily be surpassed by any of the drivers coming up next. Up next, it will be Matt Daly, who does not improve through any of these sectors. Comes across the line there. It would have been a blistering qualifying for him so far, but it just hasn't quite come together. It was looking so strong on his first attempt. It just isn't there at the moment. This is going to be his last attempt. This one has to really count, folks. He's got those soft tyres. He's going to be lower on fuel. He might have a bit of tyre wear to contend with. Let's see what Jack Hodson can do, though, as he crosses the line. And it's a 1:45.477. Stays where he is. No improvement there either. Up next, then, it will be Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews, who we saw had an issue earlier on this lap. So he's getting ready to come across the line to start his final attempt of the session. And it goes wrong. He should be able to recover there. Hopefully that hasn't taken too much life out of the tyres. He's only got 30 seconds to cross the line. That should be easily doable. The temperatures hopefully haven't gone too wild, and hopefully the degradation has been accelerated by that spin. He gets back underway, might be losing some momentum though. This could cost him all the way down into turn 1. We'll have to see how this lap shapes up. This is looking better and better by the moment though for Will Inglis, it must be said. 10 seconds left on the clock, and his rivals not really showing like they're going to be able to surpass him at any point in this session in the final 10 seconds that we've got left. Let's go back on board then with that aforementioned Will Inglis boxing off that corner. It must be a strategy that works well. Clearly my racecraft isn't where it should be. Back onto the throttle then. Will Inglis losing out through all sectors on that lap. Doesn't improve. It's a 44.9 for provisional pole for Will Inglis. That is all he can do. That might be all he needs to do. We'll just have to see though. So go back on board with Matt Daly, losing out through sector 1. Personal best through 2 and 3. This is the corner which made the difference, and he abandons a lap. Matt Daly gives up and says, that's all I can do in this session. No more pushing on for Matt Daly. I would have continued on if possible. It feels like he could have at least gone for P3, P2 perhaps. Either way, Matt Daly abandons the run there. And up next, it will be Jack Hodson. It's looking better and better, as I say, for Will Inglis. And that is not going well for Jack Hodson. Commentator's curse. Well, sort of in support of Will Inglis, but that is a disaster for Jack Hodson. He is able to continue on somehow, but that was a fairly substantial impact. 60 miles an hour with the wall. Paul Millman, a driver we haven't spoken too much about in this session, had a good run early on, comes home P5, doesn't improve towards the end. No drivers improving towards the end so far, as it turns out. Now we've got Alan Matthews, doesn't improve for any sector so far on this lap. Can he pull out a blinding lap? A blinding corner through this final part of the lap. Let's see as he heads back onto the throttle. Alan Matthews comes across the line. He does not improve, loses out by a few tenths. This means that it is going to be Will Inglis on pole for our first race of the 2025 Formula Alpha Championship season. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be a good one if that qualifying session's anything to go by. And here we go then, folks. Just over 30 seconds now until lights out. Here's a quick rundown of our grid. It's Withinglis, Alan Matthews on the front row, Jack Hodson, Matt Daly on the second, Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer rounding out our 6-car field for this race. Every driver opting for that medium compound tyre, perhaps as a result of seeing how the softs performed in qualifying. Let's see how these mediums fare then. I imagine they will still be pretty borderline. We'll just have to wait and see, though, as we begin to see the lights form up in the gantry for the first time in 2025 in the Formula Alphas. Let's go for some racing at Hungaroring. It's 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away for race 1 this evening. A good launch for everyone, in fact. This car slightly easier to launch than that front-wheel drive touring car, although it doesn't have the most torque in the world, so quite easy to bog down. Side by side then for Withinglis and Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews going for the run around the outside here, but Withinglis trying to box him off late on the brakes, and that works well. It was a nice exit through that first corner for Withinglis, and he defends the lead of the race for now. Now Alan Matthews, meanwhile, side by side with Matt Daly. Matt Daly, not a great qualifying for Matt, but he seems to have made amends for that as we head now through to that second corner. Alan Matthews very much on the defence here. A great defensive opportunity opens up, of course, through turn 2 with the off camber. So many lines to take through that corner. One of the great virtues of this circuit. I don't quite know why I've got the virtual mirror turning on. I know it's gone away, that's fine. But yeah, one of the many virtues of this circuit is just how many lines you can take through the corners and still be competitive. It opens up so many overtaking opportunities and ways to defend, as Alan Matthews is trying to prove here now as he tries to keep Matt Daly at bay. But Matt Daly does have to watch out, because there is Jack Hodson, there is Andrew Brammer, and there is Paul Millman as well. They've all got away very well, our 6 cars in this race so far, and they could be all within a shout really of at least a podium as things stand at the moment. Matt Daly having a look around the left-hander, sneaking a nose out on the outside to see if there's a way past. Nothing quite yet, but he does still keep that pressure piled on to Alan Matthews as we head now into turn 12. Withinglis making half a second a gap to Alan Matthews as Alan Matthews tries to focus on keeping Matt Daly at bay. He might have a bit of a break though, because Jack Hodson seems to be getting very close indeed to Matt Daly now. We'll just have to see how all of these 4 drivers effectively in the battle for first place play their cards right. I'd say the battle for first is probably more like the top 3 than the top 4, but still it is looking edgy, that is to say, as we see there Alan Matthews diving across the straight to try and keep Matt Daly at bay, breaking that toe, but it wasn't to be in the end. Matt Daly has a look around the outside. Can he make it stick from the outside? I'm not quite sure he can. Alan Matthews able to defend once again using that same line into that first corner, and he keeps Alan Matthews in second position for now. Jack Hodson, meanwhile, in all of this, still very much in the fight. Now, this is perfect for Withinglis, our race leader so far, because it means he can focus on just maintaining the car, keeping the car on tarmac, and making sure he just brings it home safely. Because Alan Matthews, who was putting pressure on him, is now very much focused on just trying to keep second, as we see the typical Hungaroring track limit heading through turn 4 there. Very typical stuff, nothing to be alarmed about. A disaster though for Paul Millman heading through turn 4. Not sure if that was a bit of curb. There wasn't any other contact with any other cars, so perhaps a bit too much of the curb taken out, and that has just spat him off. Withinglis still leading then, but by less of a margin, it must be said, through sector 2. He has lost some time. Alan Matthews goes purple through that middle sector. Well, first middle sector, if you will, through sector 2 at least, and gains is now only 0.3 of a second behind as we run up towards turn 12 once again. Such a quick-natured circuit. It's a 1:50 lap, which certainly isn't the shortest, but it just all fires at you so quickly. Really becoming quite a fan of this circuit, it must be said, as we see Alan Matthews and Matt Daly side by side heading into turn 12 here, sorry, make that turn 13, but still Matt Daly not able to try and find a way past. This looks like a fantastic battle to be a part of. I'm sure the drivers are reveling in it at the moment as we head back onto that start-finish straight. Jack Hodson ever so slightly behind, and then we got Andrew Brammer just behind that as well. Paul Millman ever so slightly behind, only by a few seconds, so he recovered relatively well, all things considered. Now Matt Daly gets a nose out in front, but is going to have to go for that outside line once again. That means Alan Matthews can go late on the brakes, try and defend it, but he's missed his opportunity this time round. It was Matt Daly who was able to just hang that car around the outside with confidence, keep the momentum up, gets a nose out in front, is able to box off Alan Matthews, and it's P2 for Matt Daly, and that is perhaps disaster for Withinglis, and it's also disaster for Alan Matthews there. Oh, he just ever so slightly avoids Andrew Brammer. He is going to continue on, but it's all the way down in P5. That is part and parcel of such close racing. One small error, and you can be very, very badly punished for it, as has Alan Matthews in this race. All the way down to P5. What a shame. Willingliss can't think about that all that much, though, because he's got Matt Daly hot on his heels. And this was a battle that I've been looking forward to. This should be a good one. I wonder, though, if we're starting to see the rear tyres getting just ever so slightly overheated at this circuit. Even the mediums now, as we head 5 minutes into this race. We saw it in qualifying. I think we're seeing it again in the racing, which does not bode well for later on, that is for sure. The fuel loads will get lighter, but the tyres will be losing grip. We'll just have to see how the drivers navigate that. Either way, a disaster. It's a bit of a catch-22, really. You've got all of the off-cambers as well as the rear tyres degrading and overheating. That is not going to end well for the drivers here. As we head up through turn 13 now, Matt Daly is getting closer and closer to Willingliss. Went purple through the first sector, did Matt Daly. And Willingliss is now very much on the defensive. And still in the mix here is Jack Hodson. So props to Jack Hodson there for doing his best and keeping up. It looks like Andrew Brammer's had an issue as well. He tumbles back down into P6. Now it's very quickly become a battle for the podium. A battle of attrition, really, for the drivers who've not had any issues so far. Matt Daly using that toe to go side by side, takes the inside line. This could be textbook from Matt Daly, unless Willingliss has something special up his sleeve. They're still side by side, and he has to back away from it. In fact, no, he doesn't. He keeps it in there and is going to have the inside line for turn 2. This is fantastic stuff from Willingliss. He had a great run through that first corner, kept momentum on the exit and takes a position back as we head into turn 3. Fantastic move there from the defending race leader. As we see Matt Daly in the rearview mirror darting across the circuit to see if he can try and find a way past. Nothing he's been able to work out just yet, but I'm sure he will as we head later into this race. Interesting to see that the slipstream effect so much stronger in these single-seater cars, of course, than the touring car stablemates that we have used a week ago. We'll of course see again next week. So mention these cars powered by the infamous 1.4 multi-air, or at least 1.4 Fire, as it is known, FIRE, fully integrated robotized engine, to give it its full title that is ubiquitous in many an Alfa Romeo Mito and Giulietta, as well as other cars such as the Abarth and the Abarth 124 Spider. A fantastic engine unit, very reliable, very torquey for its size, of course, only 1.4 litres, and very tunable as well, in about a 200 horsepower state of tune in these cars, and certainly not mega powerful in racing car terms. It is certainly a punchy engine, and it has served us very well over the years. And it's not the reviest, it's not the most rev happy, shall we say, but it is still a good engine nonetheless. Back on to the start-finish straight then. It is Willingliss who still leads by half a second this time around, so perhaps isn't quite at the same threat level that he was from Matt Daly, unless Matt Daly has some serious closing speed. But here is Jack Hodson in the mix as well. Goes purple through sector 3, does Jack Hodson on that previous lap. So it's going to be a close one for this podium. And Matt Daly nailed turn 1 there. The back end of Willingliss' car looking a little bit upset. That could cost him on the run down towards turn 2. Just look at how much closer Matt Daly has got this time round. He has to go wide into the corner to try and defend against Matt Daly, but Matt Daly sees him doing that, says hello, the inside line's opened up there, and is getting the nose in up as best he can. 1/10 of a second separating Willingliss and Matt Daly. Now they go side by side. Willingliss has the inside for turn 4, but that should open up a great opportunity to side the cross to the outside. It does, and he defends well. It does Willingliss. 17 minutes left of this race. We're nearly 10 minutes in already. The track ramping up ever so slightly. It loses a degree of track temperature and gains a percentage, if you will, in terms of condition. Effectively treat that as rubbering in level. That 1 degree difference isn't huge, and it certainly won't be night and day, but it will potentially help those drivers manage those tyre temps just that little bit more. The tyres are going to be well up to temperature now. They don't need the assistance in getting them up to temperature of a hot piece of tarmac. Now they want around about this sort of temperature, really. 35 degrees would be ideal to give great adhesion, but also make sure that they're not beginning to overheat their tyres. So that 1 degree could even make a slight difference here. We'll just have to see. The wind also ever so slightly picking up. You can see that in your top right-hand corner. I've tried my best to increase the size of the UI scaling there. I might have to go back to the drawing board on that one as we see Willingliss and Matt Daly getting closer. Alan Matthews has had a disaster on the exit of turn 11. He's on the infield. He's now down in P6. A great qualifying for Alan Matthews. Not going his way. Hopefully he does continue on. He returns to the pits. We don't want to see a retirement though, because it would be good to get some points on the board for him. As we see side by side, it's going to be Willingliss and Matt Daly. Willingliss has the inside line there. Matt Daly, who got a nose out in front and briefly takes the lead. It's still Matt Daly in the lead, but that is just by a very thin margin indeed. because we see Matt Daly's kind of going to have the inside line here. Can we get a switch back though from Willing Bliss as we head through turn 2 down towards turn 3 in just a moment? Defending well is Matt Daly, just about closes off the inside, sorry, the outside line there. That was going to open up for Willing Bliss, try and squeeze a car through. And this is now Matt Daly in the lead of this race, 5 laps in. What an overtake it was as well. It started through turn 1. We just missed the start of it, but it carried on through turn 2, was sealed in turn 3, and he's still fighting for it, to be honest, as we head now through towards turn 6. But this time it's looking ever so slightly more comfortable. These drivers have been absolutely on it since race start. It has been fantastic battling from our top 3 here. Let's not count out Jack Hodson in all of this. Jack Hodson has been lapping very nicely indeed. Is 1.6 seconds off the lead of the race. Is looking very close at certain points. That might still be within a shout here. Not to say that he isn't, of course. Anything can happen out in front, and we've seen that in the past. 15 minutes to go, of course, and he's still in P3, an almighty effort so far. But if he's just hung back and isn't pushing the tyres too much, he's looking after the car well, towards the end of the race, we could see something special from Jack Hodson. Extending his lead then is Matt Daly. You almost get this feeling that he's been sort of released now. He's free of Willing Bliss. The back end got very lively though as he ran through turn 4. Let's see if he did make it through, I'm pleased to report, but lost some time as a result. I was about to say, yeah, that previous lap was personal best, personal best, personal best, and purple for the sectors there. So Matt Daly really flying now, and he's got clear of Willing Bliss. That was a 1:45.0 on that last lap. That is the best lap of the race so far, even halfway through. But yeah, that nearly went very wrong through turn 4. The back end starting to set out. It's the rear tyres. I think we're very rear limited here after the Hungaro ring. 1.4 seconds separating Matt Daly and Willing Bliss now. As we say, yeah, Matt Daly with that best lap of the race so far. At this point, we should still see a decent amount of pace in the cars. Obviously, the tyres are certainly not at their best, as we've seen demonstrated, but the fuel load will be coming down now. I think we'll see around about the 7-minute mark is usually when you might see some of the absolute best laps before it starts to tail off, as the tyres just really don't have too much life left in them. Let's see those. We head back onto that start-finish straight. Our top 3 currently covered by 4 seconds in this race. But it's looking fairly close, it must be said, between Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer. Paul Millman at the moment, 1:48.2 on that last lap, his best being a 1:48.1. That isn't actually matching what he was able to do in qualifying. That might be something to do with the substantial front wing damage he's got on that car. So he's losing out in terms of front aero, losing out in terms of his grip as well. Willing Bliss having a major issue after a race that has gone so well for him through turn 1. And he's lost the back end, I think. Or whatever's happened there, he's lost some time. He's lost out to Jack Hodson, and now we find Willing Bliss down in P3. It's a fairly comfortable P3, it must be said, but it's P3 nonetheless. Not ideal given how the race started for him. Jack Hodson then promoted up into P2, and as I was saying, if he just plays his card right, sits back, just drives calmly, he's going to be rewarded. And here he is now at the moment in P2. 5 seconds down on Matt Daly, but is still improving. Is Jack Hodson is currently setting his personal best sectors, so it could be a very good race indeed for the the grey liveried car. Rather a bit overexposed, but it is grey, I promise. In terms of the previous championship running, just to recap, it was Matt Daly with 292 points to his name, taking the top step in the podium. A fairly dominant season for Matt Daly, it must be said. Then it was Alan Matthews coming runner-up there, rather, with 201 points. Currently not starting his campaign the way that he would have wanted. Then we have Colin Keefe not here this evening, unfortunately. He's had a few health issues recently, I believe, so we wish him the best and await his return. I believe he's planning on returning at some point, so it'd be great to see. So we wish you all the best on that from there, Colin. Willinglis was 4th in the championship, 152 points to his name. Currently running 3rd in this race. Then we've got Paul Millman, P5, Jack Hodson, P6, Steve Knight, P7, Guy Swarber, P8, Alex Smith, P9, and Paul Brady, P10 for last year's standings. Of course, we wait really for what the end of this evening will bring us in terms of how the standings will shape up. It won't be the most exciting, I admit, because it will just be the evening's results, of course, as we enter the final 10 minutes of this race. In a moment, we've crossed the halfway mark already, and it's still Matt Daly who leads from Jack Hodson and then Willinglis as well. Andrew Brammer is certainly closing up, or at least was closing up, on Paul Millman. We were watching that just as we saw Willinglis have his issues out on track. But there we go. Andrew Brammer having his own issues by the looks of things, because that was a 2-minute lap. So Paul Millman safe, was certainly not lapping at the same pace as Andrew Brammer a few laps ago, but has got a nice comfortable margin. So it just goes to show these can be races of attrition, even if they are sprint races. Looks like further issues for Alan Matthews. We've just had another crash indicator come up on our screen. In fact, yeah, no, he did come out and do a couple more laps by the looks of things, but unfortunately hasn't quite ended the way that he would have wanted. Now, Andrew Brammer currently running in P5, 2:02 on that last lap. Let's see what this lap will be. I don't think he'll have, it's 20 seconds in 8 minutes. I doubt he'll be able to close up to Paul Millman, but let's see. Comes towards the end of this one's 1:33 so far. Predicted to be a 1:47.5, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. That is his predicted times, what the game estimates he will post based on his previous running. Very clever mathematics happening in the background there. Comes across the line as a 1:47, so he's a 0.7 of a second faster at this current pace. Won't be enough, unfortunately. It'll only make him a few seconds. You need to be pretty. We've got about 4 or 5 laps left of this race at this point, maybe 6. It would have to be pretty big delta in order to make the difference there. Meanwhile, Matt Daly having a nice comfy lead out in front at the moment, 5 seconds. Certainly not insurmountable. Anything can happen, as I alluded to earlier. And one small incident could see that gap being absorbed, especially with the state of the tyres that we've seen so far in the racing. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see some issues like that creeping in, even in the most experienced of hands, the likes of Matt Daly. The last time I distinctly remember was a few seasons back now, probably about 2 years. Doesn't time fly? When Matt Daly was at Interlagos, and I was saying about just how much of a commendable job he was doing and how dominant his lead was, and then it all completely went wrong, really. And so I will take the blame for that one. Hasn't happened this time out. Not quite the same circumstances. Should be a nice, easy cruise home at this point, I would have thought. Although Jack Hodson, it must be said, keeping him on his toes, even if he's not quite there on his rear wing. They are posting identical times at the moment. His best lap is a second slower, is Jack Hodson's, but as I mentioned earlier, perhaps Jack just looking after those tyres a little bit better later on into the race. He has that extra grip. Jack Hodson matching Matt Daly in terms of lap time at the moment, both posting 1:46.2s. Matt Daly 1:46.26, Jack Hodson 1:46.29. And there we go, around about the 7-minute remaining marker. I did mention we might start seeing some really nifty laps here. And here we go, Matt Daly purple through that first sector, predicted to be a new fastest lap of the race. If he can keep it up, let's see. Did he go foul of track limits there? He might have just got away with it. Pretty lenient here at Hungaroring. Sector 2 also purple. That fuel load must be very low now, but the tyres still having that last bit of bite left in them as we head now through towards turn 11 here, where it went wrong for Alan Matthews at the earlier phase of the race. Full run back up the hill to the start finish straight with the right, the left and the right to round off the lap. Now, just kissing the curbs gently there, that's all you need to do. You don't have to do too much more in this Formula Alpha because it's quite a short wheelbase, obviously a very light car, and it's very low to ground. It will get spat off quite nastily by even the most innocent looking of curbs. Losing out through Sector 3, but it's still looking good for Matt Daly, unless he's lost all a bit of time there through the final corner. He crossed the line. What will it be? As he crossed the line, there is a new fastest lap of the race, 1:44.561. Sector 3 and Sector 4 put that in jeopardy, but he made all of the work at the very start of the lap, and there we go, a new fastest lap of the race for Matt Daly. So I think we now know why he was posting a similar time to Jack Hodson. He was perhaps putting a bit of tyre in reserve, shall we say, to try and push on towards a good lap against the Jack Hodson there. So has a new fast lap of the race, and that is going to be fairly tough to beat, I would say, at this point. There we see Paul Millman, by the looks of things, being followed closely by, I was about to say Andrew Brammer, that is Alan Matthews, rather, a couple of laps down at this point, obviously having a few issues in this race. Should at least have a chance to recover, though, in the reverse grid race coming up next, when the order based on race one's finishing results are completely flipped. So the likes of Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer have a chance out front to see and show us what they can do at the top end of the field. 4 minutes to go in this race, so a couple more laps at this point. 3 more laps, I would say, as we go on board with Paul Millman. Matt Daly actually has just posted another purple sector, so that's an impressive figure as he comes across the line. Will it be an improvement? It's not quite an improvement there, unfortunately. It's still a good lap, 45.2. But yeah, Sector 2, the only improvement on that lap overall. Now it must just be a case of trying to cruise and bring the car home. There we go, there is evidence of the grip starting to tail off. We weren't seeing much the form of lockups in these cars at this circuit compared to the Giuliettas, at least last week, but now we are starting to see the odd lockup here or there creeping in on the off-camber, I'll try that again, off-camber downhill turn 1. A bit of a lockup there, a bit of smoke pouring off the wheel as he tries to get it to turn into the corner and derate enough to make sure it actually makes the corner. That snarl of the 1.4 turbo engine there, absolutely brilliant. It's got a great little intake noise, does that engine. Even in non-turbocharged form, actually, it's using like the Panda 100 horsepower, it makes a great little noise there, especially with some light work to the exhaust. But with the turbo-powered cars as well, the likes of the 170 Multi-Air that using the meter that I've got, for example, so much induction noise comes through. It's fantastic stuff. You get all the nice... It reminds you of the 1980s, really. You get all the typical hot hatch turbo noises that you would expect. They are fantastic. Alan Matthews has further issues. Matt Daly jumps back onto the start-finish straight and posts another competitive time that doesn't quite match his previous one, but still lapping very nicely indeed. Is the only driver in the 45s at the moment, just building that lead out in front. See more ever so slight locking up there as he comes into turn 1 once again. So we go on board with Alan Matthews there. He loses the back end. I'm not sure if the car's got damage at this point. The tyres are done. You see his rear wing's not looking happy at all. Just seems to be... He posted a very... he made a very nice run of things in qualifying. It just didn't quite work out, but it just seems to be he's not quite gelling with this circuit at the moment. Maybe race 2 will bring him better fortune, a chance to reset and go again. We hope that is the case for Alan Matthews. He put in a very mighty effort in the previous years, second half of the year running in the championship, so hopefully he can do the same again as we head through into 2025. Paul Millman, meanwhile, coming down the start, finish straight. He crossed the line to set another lap here in the... I believe he's had to dive into the pits there by the looks of things, because that was a 3-minute lap, as Alan Matthews has further issues. That is not ideal. He dives into the pits as well. 40 seconds left on the clock. That means the next lap will be the penultimate lap of this race. What a battle it was for Matt Daly to find himself in P1 in the end. Willingless put up an almighty fight against his rivals. Alan Matthews fallen eventually down into P6, but was there to fight for first position against Willingless. Then we had Matt Daly fighting Willingless as well, after Matt Daly, of course, fighting Alan Matthews early on. In the end, it was Matt Daly who won out, and Willingless having his own misfortunes. A very slight spin that has cost him P2 in the end. And Jack Hodson, keeping his head level, keeping calm, has been rewarded quite nicely, I think, with a P2 at the moment. The timer hit 0 as we are going to be on the penultimate lap of this race. Now, we've only just started, though, I'm pleased to report, so we've got a little bit more race to go until we bring an end to the running for race 1. But, of course, don't go anywhere. Race 2 will be coming up in just a few moments' time. Here we go then, Matt Daly working his way through the technical part of the lap, heads through turn 11 and back onto the throttle for one of the more straight parts of the circuit, must be said. You're wide open between turn 1 and turn 2. You've got turn 3 and turn 4, the downhill, and then you've, well, downhill leading into the uphill rather. Then you've got turn 11, turn 12, that straight that we've just been on, and then you've got start finish straight once again. It feels like you've got a bit more wide open throttle opportunity in these cars because they are lower powered than like Formula 2 or Formula 1 car, but in that sort of car it really does feel very confined, very closed in, does this track. It doesn't feel like there's much of the track at all to really exercise the engine and give it the old Italian tune-up. As we head now onto the final lap of this race, a bit of a parade lap for Matt Daly. Then he put all the work in. It didn't work out in qualifying at all, it must be said. He looked so strong in terms of the pace. We knew he had the chance to get onto the pole. It just wasn't to be in the end. He ended up P4 after qualifying, and he's had to put all that work in to get up to where he is in this race now. And he will, if things stay the way they are on this final lap, have it all to do again as we head into the reverse grid race coming up in just a moment. But it is Matt Daly looking comfortable out in the lead. 12 seconds is the lead that he built up in the end, and has shown no real signs of issues. Had those quibbles through turn 14 with the rear tyres, with the back end of the car becoming unbalanced and unstable. He has not shown a single sign of that really in the racing that we've seen so far, and we've got more coming up in just a moment as we head through turn 6 and turn 7, one of the slower parts of the circuit. He brings a slowdown to his race. Now, what a race it has been. 15 laps for Matt Daly to bring us a great start to his season. Heading around the right-hander where some of his rivals all in at the very start, well, not at the very start, but at least early on in the race. He heads up for one last time in the elevation rise into turn 1. Sorry, into turn 1, into the end of the lap rather. I'll try that again. Heads around the left-hander of turn 13. That is followed very closely indeed by A, the pit entry, and B, turn 14. So for one last time in race 1, it's going to be Matt Daly who heads round that last corner, navigating it oh so carefully. He's learned from his previous mistakes, back onto the throttle. What a start to the season that has been for Matt Daly. He crosses the line and takes race 1 victory with a weave to celebrate, and a well-deserved celebration that was there. 4th to 1st with a very big battle in the middle of it as well. It's Matt Daly who takes race 1 victory in the end. Not to be outdone though, a great drive for Jack Hodson as well. Comes home 2nd. Willingless rounding out that podium in 3rd. Closing up on Jack Hodson was Willingless. Just wasn't quite enough laps in this race in the end. Our top 3 then settled after a fantastic battle, especially early on. We've got Andrew Brammer, who seems to be running a little bit slow at the moment. I think he'll be fine because he's the only driver still technically on the lead lap of the race. I think he might have had a bit of an issue there heading through turn 4. but he is going to be able to continue on and bring it home in the end here. Paul Millman will be coming home in P5. Alan Matthews should be classified P6. He's in the pits at the moment, but Paul Millman heads up through the final couple of corners there, heading towards the checkered flag. One lap down, but still finishing with a decent number of points to start off his championship fight nonetheless. So well done to Paul for that one. That classifies Andrew Brammer as P4 as well. Victory donuts there for Matt Daly. We have to stay on board for him for some of these well-deserved victory donuts. As we see him heading over the advertising board there, it's quite easy to end up doing those donuts in the middle of the racing, of course. It's so high speed and so high energy, especially over the rear axle for the cars. But it is victory donuts this time around for Matt Daly. Well-deserved they are, as well, as I say. So that brings an end to race 1. Please report, we've got race 2, the reverse grid race, coming up in just a moment. Here we are, folks, after the excitement of race 1. I'm pleased to report we've got it all to do again in race 2. Just under 30 seconds now until lights out. And our grid looks as follows. Andrew Brammer and Willie Gliss on the front row. Then we've got Jack Hodson, Matt Daly on the second. Then we've got Alan Matthews and Paul Millman. That should be on the third row of the grid. Hopefully Paul can get back into the session in time, or at least in good enough time to be competitive in the race. Let's see as the revs begin to rise. It's 5 seconds left until lights out here. The lights begin to illuminate. We have 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away for race 2 here at the Hungaroring. There's a good launch for Andrew Brammer, it must be said. There's also a very good launch there for Alan Matthews, as they are now 3 wide. Jack Hodson, Matt Daly and Alan Matthews and it's going to be Winning List putting a challenge on against Andrew Brammer as we head into that first corner. Tries to go late on the brakes, does Winning List, but also does Matt Daly, and now we see it's going to be Winning List versus Matt Daly heading into this first race. As we have Winning List taking the inside for turn 2. Matt Daly's going to have the work to do from the outside, but has the nose out in front, does the car in yellow, and that has paid dividends really. He goes late on the brakes. He's able to take the position, take the corner, and that is now Matt Daly in the lead of this race. But Winning List is putting up an almighty fight, and let's not forget about Andrew Brammer, who started this race on pole. He's still very much in the mix here as we head through turn 4. In just a moment, contact between Matt Daly and Andrew Brammer, just a very slight bit of contact with the wheels there. Andrew Brammer and Jack Hodson also a bit of contact there as well. That was disastrous for Matt Daly. Let's just clarify, it could have been a lot worse. He could have been spun out and losing time. He has lost time, but he hasn't ended up stopping on track. But Matt Daly has tumbled to pretty much the back end of the running now. P5 for Matt Daly after he was challenging for the lead. This now means a familiar sight. It's Winning List in the lead ahead of Jack Hodson as we head further into this race. And it is rounding the right-hander of turn 11. 1 second between Winning List and Jack Hodson at the moment. What can Jack Hodson do this time around to try and close up that gap? He looked comfortable towards the end of the race. Jack Hodson didn't quite have the pace of Matt Daly, but let's see what he can do against the blue and yellow liveried car here as we run up towards the end of the lap already here at the Hungaroring. Matt Daly is going to have just that little bit more work to do. It could have been far too easy for him, really. He did 4th to 1st in race 1. He was going to have to do it pretty much again. In fact, he was going to have to do it again in race 2. He did it within the first couple of corners, but it all went wrong really through turn 4, so now he has to work it out for him once again. 3 wide then into that first corner as we see Alan Matthews goes late on the brakes, as does Matt Daly. They both get ahead of Andrew Brammer, but it's Matt Daly who nails the line through that first corner and ends up jumping ahead of both of them. It's now Matt Daly in P3 in this race ahead of Alan Matthews and Andrew Brammer there. So Andrew Brammer running in P4 at the moment, as there is a very good chance that Matt Daly could be closing up to the likes of Jack Hodson now. Jack Hodson hasn't quite kept up with Winning List at this moment, but still very close running indeed, all things considered. 1.2 seconds separating them as we see side by side now Alan Matthews and Matt Daly. It's Alan Matthews who has the inside there running up through turn 5, who takes the lead of this battle at least for now. And all this battling is actually keeping Andrew Brammer very much in the mix here as we run through turn 6 and turn 7. And now it is Alan Matthews in P3. This is the fight for the last spot on the podium, the all-important last spot on the podium. You get a decent number of points for it, of course. So it will be one that is hard fought for between our drivers here. Alan Matthews, of course, trying to make amends for race 1. Things really did not go his way. The same can be said for Andrew Brammer, really, as we see the number 1 livery car signifying that he won the championship last time out. Matt Daly doing his best to try and find a way past Alan Matthews, but Alan Matthews are very strong on the defensive. Not too strong, not being unfair, but being a very well executed defence is being formed up so far from Alan Matthews here as we head up through that final corner. Out in front, it's looking very close as well, because we see that Jack Hodson is closing up to Winning List, particularly on that last lap. We are going to go back on board though with Alan Matthews and Matt Daly as they are side by side heading down towards that first corner. Who's going to win out here? It's going to be Matt Daly who has the outside. Alan Matthews, who has the inside, is able to defend from it. They braked as late as they could, both of them. And it is Alan Matthews who wins out for now, but the question is for how long, because we know Matt Daly is fairly formidable, as it turns out to be. This is a track, car and driver combination that does very well indeed. So let's see how things shape up for Alan Matthews and Matt Daly. Still not able to find a way past yet, or will he be able to? The door opens up ever so slightly for Matt Daly, slightly wide into turn 5 for Alan Matthews, and Matt Daly says, thank you very much, I can see an opportunity, I'm seizing it, and there we go, it's Matt Daly into P3 in this race. The question is for how long, because is he going to be able to catch up to Jack Hodson and take P2, or is he instead going to have further issues at keeping Alan Matthews at bay? And Alan Matthews, who is very much on charge here to prove that he's going to take a podium away from the Hungaroring. The back end steps out much like it did in the previous race at the same corner as well. I think that was a bit curb-induced this time around, and that is Alan Matthews out of the running there. Bit of commentator's curse, I do apologise. Alan Matthews down in P5. What a shame for the white, yellow and green liveried car there. He put in an almighty effort trying to fight the very well-skilled Matt Daly. Unfortunately, he just wasn't able to keep it out on track there, and that now gives Matt Daly a bit of breathing room from Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer on that last lap at 146.5, Matt Daly at 145.7. That is a cause for concern for Jack Hodson, but I don't think he's too concerned with P3 at the moment. He's a bit more concerned with the lead of the race as we go side by side now. Jack Hodson versus Will Inglis. It's Jack Hodson who gets a nose out in front, has the outside for turn 2. Now this could be a very well considered and executed overtake for Will Inglis, and it was indeed. He takes that inside, he boxes off Jack Hodson and takes back the lead of this race. As we see now, Jack Hodson trying to find a way around, isn't quite able to find one just yet, but Will Inglis is going to be very occupied with trying to find a way to make his Tartus FA01 chassis as wide as physically possible, if preferable as wide as the circuit is, but that is certainly no mean thing. Quite a narrow car this overall, only 1/10 separating these two drivers, and this is disaster really. As I've alluded to in the past, you want to do the endurance Carter thing of the tap on the helmet to say, come on, let's work together, let's try and make sure we don't ruin our own race. We can battle later, but for now, let's try and keep Matt Daly at bay, because this battling is very much slowing these two drivers down. Matt Daly is now only 2 seconds behind these two cars out in front, matching the likes of Jack Hodson and Will Inglis for pace on the last lap, and it's going to be much faster on this one because it's purple sectors all around for Matt Daly. So here we go, Matt Daly now within 2 seconds, no slipstream to be had just yet. Give it a lap or two and there will be. So these two drivers really need to play their cards right. Do they just try and forget about their battle for now and just focus on keeping Matt Daly behind? That's what I'd do. Well, I'd say that's what I'd do. I wouldn't even be anywhere near the lead of the race, so forgive me for completely lying there, but that's what I'd want to do if I was in these drivers' position. And I'm sure they've considered it, but I've decided it's far more fun to have that battle for the lead. And I agree with him, to be fair. It's far more fun to watch it as well. As we go side by side now, Jack Hodson takes the nose out in front once again. But is it going to be a repeat of the previous lap? We'll just have to find out. We head through turn 2 there. Nicely executed. Jack Hodson actually does take the lead of the race this time round, and now is Jack Hodson's final chance, I would say, at keeping Matt Daly at bay. It's if he keeps Will Inglis at bay and is able to try and build up a gap. That isn't going to be the case, unfortunately. That is Jack Hodson actually backing out of it, heading into turn 4, trying to think there's going to be a collision here. Very wise move and very considered, if not potentially threatening to his race overall, because that allowed Will Inglis to absolutely scythe on past with so much extra performance, so much extra speed there. Takes back the lead, does Will Inglis, and more importantly, there was such a delta in pace between Jack Hodson and Matt Daly. Matt Daly is now right on the gearbox of Jack Hodson and is very much in the mix now. He's very much considered to be in the battle for first place in this race. The top 3 covered by just half a second, folks. This is going to be fantastic action for this lead of the race. Track temperature 36 degrees. The rubbering in has completely finished now, but the conditions have risen by 1 degree out on track. Shouldn't mean too much, if not a bit more degradation if possible, potentially towards the end of the race. We head through the final corner then. Will Inglis leads from Jack Hodson, from Matt Daly. The top 3 very close indeed. Next opportunity will be heading into this first corner now. Jack Hodson and Matt Daly all very close together, but Matt Daly now sees his opportunity. A great run through that first corner, fantastic momentum on the exit, and there we go. It is Matt Daly up into P2 ahead of Jack Hodson now. This time 1 lap ago it was Jack Hodson in the lead of the race. Now he finds himself in P3, and now it's Will Inglis who has all the work to do. If anything, I'd be slightly envious of Jack Hodson at this point. He can sort of put his feet up a little bit now and just kind of relax. He knows where he is. He's got a decent margin to P4, Andrew Brammer. So what he can do now is sit in P3, be confident in the knowledge that he's at least going to come away with the podium if he plays his cards right and make sure that no errors creep in, anything like that. But also confident in the fact that what Matt Daly's going to do is he's going to close up to Willingliss. He's going to have a battle. He's going to potentially drop Willingliss down into P2, or even furthermore, slow them down. Potentially something could happen, and Jack Hodson's poised to be rewarded with being the last man standing in that action, really. So, yes, he'll be sad that he's lost out on the lead of the race for now, but I say don't count anything out from Jack Hodson yet. He's certainly in a good position overall in terms of the wider picture for this race weekend. As we see Matt Daly really piling that pressure onto Willingliss now in terms of their pace. Last lap out, Willingliss was 0.4 of a second faster, but in terms of overall pace, Matt Daly has posted his fastest lap of the weekend so far a few laps ago, and that was 1:44.010 as he goes side by side with Willingliss, gets the nose out, has the outside line though into that first corner. Willingliss defending from the inside, goes late on the brakes as he compromises exit. He's lost out in terms of momentum, but he's able to box him off. Is that going to be enough though? They're still side by side. Matt Daly then has the outside for turn 2, technically briefly in the lead of the race, but not really. As we see, that's actually cost him big time, has Matt Daly. Remember when I was saying that Jack Hodson is going to be poised to and is still in a good position here? Briefly, Jack Hodson was going to take P2 there. So here we go. A proper battle, a proper three-way battle for the lead of this race now. As we see Willingliss 0.2 of a second ahead of Matt Daly. Matt Daly 0.2 of a second ahead of Jack Hodson. As we have a few incidents further down the pack, actually looks like Willingliss has had a bit of a... Sorry, that is Paul Milton having a bit of an incident there, lost his front wing. So hopefully he's able to limp the car home, although not the race that he would have wanted. Likewise for Alan Matthews, a repeat really of race 1, unfortunately. As we see Willingliss back in the lead of the race, defending with all of his might really to keep Matt Daly and Jack Hodson at bay. Now this is an ideal part of the lap to be in really if you're on the defence. Sector 2 gets very twisty, gets very tight, the track narrows. You can't let the track kind of fall to you in the knowledge that there's going to be no way that another car behind can find a way past. It does open up, however, at this part of the circuit, and especially on that run down to turn 1, running through turn 3, 2 and 4. So, what does Willingliss have up his sleeve this time? We jump back onto the start-finish straight. Predicted 1:43.9 if things stay the way they are on this lap for Matt Daly. That will be impressive given he's in the midst of a battle, but Matt Daly does get a nose out in front. Going to take the outside line once again. We've seen it plenty of times before. Willingliss is wise to it at this point, but things go a little bit differently this time. Willingliss going to the outside line this time, heading into that second corner. How will it play out now? Matt Daly has the inside for the downhill left-hander. Gets a nose out in front, but Willingliss gets a further increase in speed in terms of extra momentum on the exit of the second corner as a result of his outside line. So he's able to defend and able to swoop in through the inside through turn 3. A fantastic combination of corners at the start of this lap. It really is, and it just keeps Matt Daly at bay for the time being. This is the battle that we were threatened with in race 1, and it was a good battle in race 1, but this is a battle that we have been truly expecting in here in race 2. I didn't think race 1's battle for the lead could be topped really, but I've been proven wrong, and I'm very glad to report that. Here we see Matt Daly isn't quite on the same level of Willingliss on this part of the lap, and Jack Hodson actually gaining through the end of sector 3 there. So now side by side, Jack Hodson and Matt Daly go through turn 13. What can he do through turn 14? An unfortunate retirement for Alan Matthews there, not the start to his championship campaign that he would have wanted. I'm sure he'll have plenty more opportunities to recover though, as Willingliss heads back onto the start-finish straight in the lead here. Jack Hodson brought up a challenge to Matt Daly. It just wasn't to be in the end. Everyone's still on the medium tyres, clearly the tyre of choice for this circuit and car combination, as Matt Daly tries something different this time around. Just about saw a car's width on the inside of the start-finish straight there and got the overtake done. What a move from Matt Daly. No one expected that. I certainly didn't. He gave it a go anyway. It's Matt Daly in the lead of this race now. Willingliss running in P2, potentially under threat from Jack Hodson now. Can Jack Hodson follow Matt Daly through nicely here. He might be able to. Well boxed off, though, by Willingless. And Willingless certainly doesn't think that this battle is over, as he wants to go side by side, running through turn 4 now. He does not relent. It's going to be on Matt Daly to make sure the room is there. They use the IndyCar line heading through turn 4. We run up through turn 5 now. Bit of contact there, and that has cost Matt Daly substantially. That one slight nudge, just like we saw at the very start of this race, has meant that Matt Daly drops back now into P3. It's Jack Hodson up into P2 now. 0.3 of a second separate Jack Hodson and Willingless. What can Matt Daly do from this point? I'd like to point out, over 15 minutes into this race, we are covered by less than 1 second. It is 0.6 of a second covering the top 3 of this race. A fantastic drive from our top 3 competitors here. If this is anything to go by, I am very much looking forward to how this season is shaping up to be. It's going to be a good one. I should note, next week for the touring cars, we will be visiting Belgium, Spa-Francorchamps, one of my absolute favourite circuits. Fortunately, it doesn't look like I will be present because it is my birthday. Some celebrations might be getting in the way of things there, so I will apologise, but I will certainly be back for the Formula Alpha running at Spa-Francorchamps. A brilliant circuit. We look forward to it. But what a circuit Hungaroring has delivered for both weekends, touring car and the Formula Alpha. Fantastic action as we go 3 wide into the first corner here. It's Matt Daly in the lead this time around. Willingless side by side, and Jack Hodson jumps down into P3. Willingless is going to have the outside 4 turn 2 here. He is going to be slightly compromised in terms of the run out of that first corner, I think, though, because out in front with the nose there is Matt Daly. He takes back the lead. It's Willingless in P2. Jack Hodson slightly further back this time around, now 1 second down after so long in this race, and it's disaster for Willingless. Didn't quite catch that one. I think the back end just let go after such an impressive fight. It's Willingless now 6 seconds down. What a disaster. Such a strong charge throughout the entirety of race 2. It was all going so well. Brilliant stuff to watch and behold in particular, and unfortunately it comes to a bit of a sour end so quickly as well. Willingless now running in P3. Still a good result if you can stick to it, but not the way we wanted this battle to end, that is for sure. Now we head back up to the action at the top end of the field, and it is still Matt Daly leading this race from Jack Hodson. This has been a deja vu really from race 1. About 5 laps to go in this race, and the gap is 1 second. Their last lap, Jack Hodson 145.8, Matt Daly 146.4. Matt Daly with that blistering best lap overall though of 144.0. So let's see what these two competitors can do. If Jack Hodson has anything else up his sleeves that he can try to make a difference in comparison to race 1. Our 5 runners in the race then, 3 of them embroiled in such a fantastic battle for so long in this race. Things start to settle down ever so slightly as we bring the cars home, but what a race it has been so far. Bodes well, of course, for Matt Daly's continued championship defence, as we see so far in this championship. The points are as follows. It is Matt Daly on 25, then we have Jack Hodson on 18, Willingless on 15, Andrew Rammer on 12, and then we have Paul Millman on 10 as well. Alan Matthews on 8, I should add as well. .2 seconds now, the gap between Matt Daly and Jack Hodson, so that gap has built up ever so slightly now. Jack Hodson not quite there in terms of pace with Matt Daly. Matt Daly still in the 144s at this phase of the race. That is impressive. We are probably, well, we might be past best. It was around this point last time out where Matt Daly set his absolutely blinding fastest lap of the race in race 1. However, he has had a bit more of a challenge this time out, a bit more hard running on the tyres, I suspect. The tyres might be dropping off just that little bit more. So we'll see if he has anything else up his sleeve, but still, to be in the 144s at this phase of the race when everyone else is in the 46s, 47s or 48s, that is an impressive drive from Matt Daly. And Jack Hodson will be, I'm sure, pleased with his start to the championship, will be running second in the championship as things stand. Less than 5 minutes to go in this race now. Matt Daly 2.5 seconds ahead of Jack Hudson, so building up that gap nicely as he continues on as things looked in race 1. I do like the lovely continuity there because of all the work in the background that guy puts in, the guy Swarbrick puts in to make the AROC Racing Leagues the wonderful place that it is. One of the features that we have is rolling sessions, so you just have to join the server once at the start of the event, and then you can stay in for the rest of the racing evening. What that means is we get lovely little details, like if you look at turn 4 there, you can see the skid marks from where Matt Daly enjoyed his victory donuts in race 1, so that is a lovely touch there. Yes, big thank you to Guy for all the work that he puts in. Starting off 2025 very well indeed. Hungaroring has delivered a fantastic piece of racing in the touring car and the Formula Alpha running as well. So if you want to be part of that, drop us a message, ask on the Facebook groups, and to get involved as well. Even drop a comment here, so if registering your interest in the YouTube stream if you're watching along at home, certainly will point you in the right direction in terms of getting involved, because especially with the launch of Assetto Corsa Evo, Assetto Corsa is very cheap and easy to run simulator now. It doesn't take much to get involved. Even if you think you might not have the skills, I promise you, you do. You will learn in a nice, friendly, welcoming environment, and it's a bit of fun at the end of the day. So come along, get involved in the AROC Racing Leagues. I'll say this under my breath, you don't even have to be an AROC member to join. So do take part and enjoy some racing action with us, just in case, on the very slight off chance, of course, that you're completely sick of my voice. I'd certainly want to get into a high-speed Formula car in order to get away from my voice, so why don't you give that a go? It's certainly worth a shout. 3 minutes to go in this session as Matt Daly leads now by 3.5 seconds, building up that gap nicely. Jack Hudson still pushing on nicely as well. Willingless, the pace falling off ever so slightly with that front wing damage, of course. He is not going to be in the best position to set blistering laps at this phase of the race with no tyres, very little fuel, and some aero damage to go with it as well. Andrew Rama having a nice race, all things considered as well. Didn't start perhaps the way that he would have wanted, but some decent points finishes overall this weekend to, again, start off a nice championship charge for all of our drivers here. Just under 2 minutes to go in this session now. As we see, Matt Daly building up that gap now to 4 seconds, 90 seconds left on the clock. This won't be the penultimate lap of this race. We will get a couple more laps squeezed in to make a 15-lap race here at the Hungaroring. Still predicted a very good time, actually, is Matt Daly on this lap at the moment, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screens. Was a 38.3 Sector 1 time there. Sector 1 here at the Hungaroring, by far and away the biggest sector out on the lap. The successive sectors, right, saying that 10 times fast, are all around about the 22nd region there. Sector 2 for Matt Daly there at 19.7. Then it'll be another 18 or 19 or so seconds for Sector 3, followed by slightly longer again, actually, Sector 4. So all fairly even sectors, all things considered, here at the Hungaroring, as Matt Daly will be coming towards the end of that aforementioned Sector 3 now to post an 18.3 there, so still shaping up to be a very competitive lap indeed. It won't be his best, but it will certainly be quicker than anyone else out on track at the moment. Not quite the 10-second or so lead that we saw in race 1. Of course, his efforts to achieve that again were slightly dampened by the almighty battle that we saw earlier on. I'm pleased to report that was great stuff from our top 3 drivers, as we do now start the penultimate lap of this race. Matt Daly, if he can keep it up, I doubt he will, of course, with the tyre condition being the way they were, would be briefly predicted at 1:43, which we haven't quite seen this weekend, although Matt Daly did get very close indeed, got within just a couple of hundredths of seeing a 1:43 second lap time there. So we'll see what he's able to do as we push on towards the end of the lap. Elsewhere out on track, see Paul Milman's actually jumping onto that soft compound tyre. Now, he is a lap down, is Paul Milman, but very much entitled to unlap himself should the opportunity arise. That is Willingless out in front, so he'd have a bit more lapping to doing to get rid of that one lap delta, and that is a disaster for Paul Milman. Now, has an issue through turn 2. It'll be interesting to see what the pace would have been like on the softs. Unfortunately, that won't quite work out here this evening. And there is Willingless, of course, in the midst of battle just a few laps ago, really, for the lead of this race for victory. Unfortunately, front wing damage has rather ruined his attempts there. Then we have Andrew Brammer running in P4, and it's been quite a lonely P4 for Andrew, to be honest. You know, he hasn't really had too much competition. He's just been quietly lapping by himself. Matt Daly has had an incident out on track that has brought him right into play now with Jack Hodson. This has just all of a sudden got very interesting indeed, folks. No major front wing damage, no rear wing damage in any type of major fashion for Matt Daly. A yellow indicator on my screen there, but the front wing is absolutely toast, I can report. It is completely red there as we start the final lap of this race. This final lap is really going to have to matter for Matt Daly. The stakes have not been higher for him at any point this weekend. All of a sudden, what can Jack Hodson do? Will he be spurred on with the knowledge that his driver out in front, his rival, is slightly rattled and has damage as well? Closing up through the second corner, Jack Hodson now runs through that third corner, and we dive downhill before we rise up towards the twistier part of the lap once again. Jack Hodson actually losing out a little bit of time there. Matt Daly seems to have just the upper hand in terms of straight line performance, or at least corner exit, as we run up towards the twisty stuff now. What can Jack Hodson do? It will be very close to the line as things turn out. Willingless also improving in terms of time on this current lap. We dive through turn 6 and turn 7, right over the curbs, just judging them to perfection. Don't want to take too little, you'll lose time. Don't want to take too much, you'll end up spinning around. And here we see Jack Hodson closing up now as we head through towards the end of Sector 3. Turn 11 to negotiate yet. We've seen Turn 11 go wrong a few times so far this weekend. It just about goes right for these drivers here, but you could see the car squirming about underneath Matt Daly there. The front wing damage as we head through Turn 12. This would have been a perfect damage this weekend for Matt Daly. Unfortunately, he's going to be bringing home quite a wounded car, and a wounded car under pressure as well as we turn through Turn 13. Jack Hodson had a look up the inside there. It wasn't quite to be. Can he do anything through that final corner now? He's got better corner entry speed, but will that compromise him as we run through towards the exit? I don't think there's anything left in the tank though, and by the absolute skin of his teeth, Matt Daly crosses the line to take race 2 victory, and only half a second down, Jack Hodson comes home in P2. That was hair-raising stuff, folks. I imagine the atmosphere was tense in the cockpits of both of these cars, but congratulations to both competitors for putting on a fabulous show, and congratulations must also be extended to Willingless, who was involved in that there. Willingless rounding out the podium once again. Deja vu, as I said, from race 1. The results repeat themselves here in race 2. We get victory donuts from Matt Daly, but we were very much under threat of not getting Matt Daly victory donuts, because that was very close indeed, folks. As we see Andrew Brammer running in P4, comes home P4, then some good points on the board for him. Paul Milman comes home P5 to round out our classified runners from this evening. Fantastic action from the Hungaroring, as I say. Unfortunately, a break in the stream for next week. Potentially, hopefully not. It'd be nice if not. As we see some Matt Daly victory donuts. What a camera angle to watch them from as well. Yeah, potentially a bit of a break as we head through to Spa in the touring cars next week. But in a fortnight's time, we return to Spa in the Formula Alphas for some more racing action. So we'll have Matt Daly to serenade us off. Thank you very much for watching this evening. Hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed commentating, because I really have. It has been a fantastic action. And I wish you all good night. Thank you for watching.